Hello student, after seeing the introduction of motion, now let's we try to understand the motion with the help of reference point and reference frame. So to describe the position of an object, we need a reference point or origin. Suppose someone wants to describe the position of our school, then they will select a different reference point. Some says that it is near the Khijdi plot ground, while other giving some other reference point, right? So an object may seems to be moving to one observer and stationary to another. So just like if we are going to talk about any moving object, then also we will require a reference point, just like we have required a reference point to describe the position of our school, or we can say the address of our school, right? Exactly same way, to describe the position of any moving object also we will require a reference point, because an object may seems to be moving for one observer and the stationary for another, right? So example, a passenger inside a bus sees the other passengers to be sit at rest, right? Whereas an observer outside the bus sees the passengers to be in motion, right? So if you are sitting in the bus and you are sitting your fellow passenger, you are seeing your fellow passengers in the bus, then you will seem that they are at a rest position, or they are stationary. They are not moving here and there inside the bus, but whole bus is going to be moved, right? So that is the reason if someone observing you from outside the bus, then he or she observe that all the passengers in the bus are in motion, right? So it would be different. So in order to make observations easy, a convention or a common reference point or a frame is needed. All objects must be in a same reference frame, then we can identify whether any given object is in motion or not. Okay, so after understanding the concept of motion, let's we try to understand two phenomenon, that is the distance and displacement. It means motion in a straight line. Basically we are trying to understand over here a motion in a straight line. So in that we are going to see the two parameter, one is a distance and second one is a displacement. So the magnitude of the length covered by a moving object is called distance. मतलब कि how many distance, how much distance is covered by the object, it can be considered as the distance, and it has no direction. While you are talking about distance, you are not requiring to mention the direction, because the path can be covered in any of the direction. So in case of distance, or while you are going to define the distance, at that time you don't need to mention the direction. But in case of displacement, displacement is the shortest distance between 2 points, or the distance between the starting and final position with respect to time. It has magnitude as well as direction. मतलब इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि while you are defining the displacement, at that time you will require the value. Magnitude means you will require its value as well as you will require the direction, right? So displacement can be 0, but the distance cannot be 0. So if we try to understand it, then suppose here I am mentioning A point and here I am mentioning B point. So A point is our starting point, B is our ending point or a final point, we can say. A is the initial point, B is the final point. Now someone wants to go from A point to B point, right? So there are two persons. Suppose one person is traveling A point to B point like this way, in this path, right? ये जो आपको पथ दिख रहा है उस पथ में वो ट्रैवल कर रहा है, right? And someone traveling from A to B in a straight line or a directly, right? So this total distance covered by a person to travel from A point to B point, this can be considered as the distance. And a straight line, or we can say the shortest path traveled by a person, or from the initial position to the final position, and that what we consider as the displacement. So hope so there is a clear difference between distance and displacement. So now if we try to study the distance and displacement in detail, then also we can do it. As I have said that the displacement can be 0, but distance cannot be 0, right? So let me explain you with the help of this example. first of all, what is distance? So distance is the total movement of an object without any regard to direction. Direction doesn't matter while we are talking about distance. We can define distance as to how much ground an object has covered despite its starting and ending point. Starting and ending point doesn't matter. Suppose here if we are trying to understand with the help of this figure, then a person or a child having a cycle and try to cover up the distance or try to go one place to another place, then he is going to starting his journey from the A point, and he will go to the B point, right? So the distance from A point to B point is 4 meter. Now from B point to C point he will going to be travel, and that distance would be 3 meter. And now finally from C point to he will come to its original point, that is A. So the distance between C to A would be 5 meter, right? So now if you want to calculate the total distance traveled by a child, then you have to do the summation or addition of this total distance. That first of all he has covered up 4 meter distance, then he has covered up 3 meter distance, and last he has covered up 5 meter distance. So the total distance traveled by the children is 4 meter plus 3 meter plus 5 meter is equal to 12 meter, right? So here the distance will going to be 12 meter. But in the same case, if you are going to measure the displacement, then what happened? So generally displacement is equal to final point plus initial point, right? So final point is initial point is A. Now he is traveling his journey from A to B, B to C, and C to E. A, right? Means initial point is A and final point is also A, right? So the displacement done by the children in this case would be 0, because initial point and final point is same. It means जहाँ से उसने journey start की वहीं पे आके उसने ख़त्म की, right? So it would be 0. So we can say that the displacement could be 0, but the distance could not be 0. So hope you have get the clear difference between distance and displacement.